Welcome to Biztech's SME show, where we feature SMEs, both small and large, sharing their entrepreneurial journeys and also imparting the lessons that they've learned during the journey. Now, on today's SME show, we feature Prosperna from the Philippines. Now, Prosperna was founded in 2016 and claims to be the #1 e-commerce platform for SMEs and micro SMEs in the Philippines. It allows users to create an online store and sell their products on the internet via Facebook, Viber, or WhatsApp. Here to tell us more is Dennis Velasco, CEO of Prosperna. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Hey, Brian, great to be here. Well, super happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, now, Dennis, let's start by taking us through an overview of what you do and a quick recap, perhaps, also of your journey so far.
Yeah, sure. So today, Prosperna is on a huge mission to empower 100,000 Philippine micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises with what we believe is the easiest e-commerce platform. So especially in this day and age where there's been a massive rapid adoption of technology, due to the lockdown and the pandemic. So that's currently what we're focused on, is really helping, those small businesses that didn't have access to technology before.
Now, you started this business in 2016, and before you set up Prosperna, you were in the US. Tell us a little bit about your journey coming back to the Philippines and leaving very good opportunities in the Silicon Valley. You work for Salesforce, you work for Xero as a VP of sales. Tell us about some of the motivations behind the move.
Yeah, and there might be some similar stories to this, but for me, my parents is really where it all started. They were actually both small business immigrants, and their dream was to go to America for more opportunity, right? Just like a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's really where it started, because I grew up working in their small businesses, right? So if I wasn't pumping gas, at my dad's gas station, or helping my mom at her clothing boutique, unloading all the stuff that she had imported from who knows where, right? I was really learning, and really empowering myself to understand what it takes to be a small business owner. And then fast forward, I was very lucky and blessed that, honestly, the first company that hired me out of college happened to be a technology company. And so from there, I started to really combine, those two things that were ingrained in me, right? The entrepreneurism that comes along with, being a small business owner. And then number two, what technology can really do to change the game. Now, where do the Philippines come in? The interesting thing, Brian, is I never came to the Philippines until I was 12 years old. In fact, okay. I kid around sometimes because I've had to, learn the Tagalog language just on my own without having a course. I've never taken Tagalog my entire life.
So you didn't speak Tagalog at home when you were in the US?
No, because my parents were very strict, and they knew that if they didn't want their kids getting beat up at school, you had to speak English. Yeah. And so the first time I came here, I was 12 years old. And that's when two things really struck me. Number one, I just fell in love with our culture. The close family knit environment, and the Filipino people they're happy all the time, no matter what the situation is. And it's probably a lot of your Filipino friends. I mean, it's like they're the kind of folks that are just always smiling. Absolutely. And so that really resonated with me as a culture. On the downside, imagine yourself as a 12-year-old young adolescent for the first time really traveling abroad. And I hate to say, but I was heartbroken by the disparate gaps between the people that have money and those that don't have money, right? And so from there, I just started forming this mindset as I continued in technology. What if one day my dream was to be able to come back to the Philippines and bring the things that I learned and that I experienced to help empower our country. And I'm just really blessed to be able to do that, today. So yeah, 2016, I turned in my corporate laptop and said, I'm going to the Philippines, and we're just going to start building technology.
And did you have an idea at that time what you were going to build or the kind of problems you were going to solve?
Very good question. And to be upfront with you, I didn't know. I just knew that technology could make an impact. And at the same time, I didn't want to be over assumptive and make mistakes that I've heard about that other people do, right? Other companies from this country or that country, they fly in and fly out of Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and think that you'll just bring exactly what you know here, and there's every reason why it should work, right? I didn't want to make that mistake. So I actually spent the first couple years, learning, right? Understanding and talking to people to figure out what their problems were. So
Okay.
while 2016, I went here and we started building things, we really started, and started creating Prosperna a few years later, once I had an understanding of, how things worked.
Okay. And what was the light bulb moment when Prosperna hit you and said, this is the thing, this is what we're going to do, guys?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, one of my roles in the U.S. was, I had a great opportunity to run sales nationwide for, a competing brand in the online accounting software space. And, that was Xero, and we were focused on, cloud accounting software for
And that was the
SMEs.
early days of Xero.
Yeah. They were just breaking into the U.S. and they wanted to upseat the incumbent of QuickBooks, right? And so, marketing and selling products and services in the Western world, it's one in where it's important that customers have as much choice and they can research and read what kinds of services that they want to use for their business. Well, what I saw here was pretty glaring, and the way companies, small, medium, and large, were marketing and selling their products were so traditional. You would walk into a mall, right? Back then, a few years ago, haven't been to a mall lately, but you would walk into a mall and people would actually be giving and handing out brochures, right? For whatever product, health and wellness products, for real estate, for restaurant promotion coupons. They're just handing them out, paper and flyer, hand by hand, right? And I said, oh my gosh, that doesn't look very fun. And there's got to be, the proverbial entrepreneurial statement, there's got to be a better way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So we started trying to figure out how we can help these brands improve how they market and sell their products. Because again, if you put the consumer first, right? Consumers should be able to look you up, find you, and just like normal, they would compare what works for them before they engage with you, right? And the pushing of paper is really the opposite of that. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not looking for your product or service. Why are you looking at me right now?
So then walk us through then what you did from that idea stage to execution, and what was your go-to-market strategy once you started executing?
Yeah, so at that stage, what we did is, to be honest with you, we were first, we just first created some very simple mock-ups and very simple examples of software. And we were just, giving it out as a beta test, right? To a few friends and people that, I know in the industry, and, seeing what they thought, right? And then from there, something magical happened, which is where they started, telling their friends and other, colleagues of theirs on how they were using this new gadget and how it was helping them save money or be more efficient in their business. And then, you have to take your business though, because it's easy to give something away for free,
Yes.
right? And I mean, who doesn't want to take anything for free? And the real test is when you say, okay, it's no longer for free. And now you start marketing it and asking companies who don't know you and presenting your solution in a way in which, will this help your business? And if it does, are you willing to pull your credit card out of your back pocket and pay for the service on a monthly basis? And that's really where the rubber meets the road, is, are people really willing to go from idea to go, you have something great and I'm willing to pay you for it? And, that's one of those magical moments that a lot of startups and, companies of any category, are hoping for and on a constant search for.
Yep, the product market fit only happens when there's an exchange of currency.
Very well said. You nailed it. That's exactly it. And from there, we said, look, this kind of software, you just, software is getting easier to create, but, it doesn't get built overnight, right?
Yeah.
People get this misperception that, oh, Facebook, Airbnb, whatever, fill in the blank, Google, wow, they're so successful. It's software, it's easy. It's like Netflix. You just, press go, right? And that's a really big misperception. So we said, look, we want to do it right. And we're going to start with a vertical approach. Instead of trying to be all things to all people, let's start with a certain specific vertical community. And then we will start adding other vertical features that will help us expand, right? So that was really, the simplest way to look at our, go-to market.
And which were the first three that you targeted in terms of verticals?
Yeah. That is interesting because the first industry that we started with, Brian, was actually the industry that many countries in Southeast Asia, it's one of the industry that's made many countries really flourish. And that is the real estate industry.
Okay.
Now, the funny thing is, Brian, about the real estate industry, and I'm curious what you think about this, but real estate industries and companies around the world have always known to be laggards in technology, right? They're not exactly the early adopters, right? And the good news about real estate is that if you're going to be in real estate, you need to make yourself found. So for us, right, or like any technology company, you have to find a way to make it easy to find your customer. I mean, how many?
You've got to get customers to come to their store and then get them to have repeat customers. You've got to drive conversion. So that's your job as a marketplace.
Yeah. And so we knew that real estate was one of the top 6 economic drivers in the Philippines. So we knew that A, they had some money to spend, right? Because they were growing. We knew that B, they have to make themselves found. So as a company that wants to promote our solutions to help them, we could easily find them. And the only thing missing was, did we build something that they wanted?
Yes.
Right. And so we started growing in the real estate industry, by building our brand. And we knew that we wanted to cut across other verticals. So actually it was only midway into 2019 when we decided to expand into other verticals. And, building a real estate marketing and sales website, it's very similar to e-commerce, although no one's going to actually buy a piece of real estate online, right? But it's still a product, right?
So how did you then compete with the real estate portals, which are dedicated sites to real estate, who also probably provide some of the services that you were looking to provide at that time?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up because, we look at real estate portals, we look at marketplaces like, Lazada and Shopee and Lamudi and all those others. We kind of look at those in the big picture because there's many kinds of software in the e-commerce category.
Yeah.
And those kinds of folks we refer to as marketplaces.
Yeah.
And there's good news and bad news to the marketplaces. They all play a role, and an important one, right? I think the good news about marketplaces is they can help jumpstart a new brand or a new real estate broker pretty quick because they have built-in traffic. Yes. Right? The downside is, you're there with 1,000 other people competing for the same traffic. So it's really hard to start differentiating yourself. So marketplaces are great for rapid new customer acquisition. But what we ended up finding is that people who market and promote their products, brands, and services on these marketplaces, when they start to gain some success, right, the concept of going direct to consumer starts to seed and grow in their mind because of the high commission rates that marketplaces charge. Right?
Exactly, because you keep paying. You've got to, for them to drive traffic to you, you've got to keep paying. That's the whole.
You got to pay to play.
Yeah, that's the Google and Facebook model as well. You keep paying to play.
Yeah, and if you're successful and you have a good product, right, and that's obviously part of the goal, then the world has historically been built, right, of importers and exporters trying to get their whatever they're making direct to their customer. Yep. And even in the online go-to market of a brand, that philosophy is still there. And that's where having your own online store with your brand.com is important, because after you get some awareness, you want to expose them to all of your other products and services in your catalog instead of losing them to other competitive products and services on a marketplace. So I see merchants and brands having their own online store and working with marketplaces actually as a cohesive strategy. Right? Yeah. So they might put promotional products, right, to get their brand name out there on the marketplace.
Right.
So once people know them, then they'll go, hey, I want to find if Brian Fernandez has his own online store. He probably has a lot of other cool stuff. And that's where your own brand.com comes into play.
And so where among your customers right now today, which are the top verticals that you're seeing adoption in?
Yeah. So this might be no secret to others, but from a pure data standpoint and where Prosperna is today, I'd say over 40% of our customers are in the food and beverage industry. And then we have maybe 25% in the health, beauty, and wellness, right? Because even though we're locked down, we want to still look good and feel good, right?
Yeah.
And then you start getting into those things that are the personal items like the apparel, accessories, and then digital gadgets. So those are probably the top 4 industry verticals that are really moving fast to rapidly adopt e-commerce.
And Dennis, you've got a lot of competition in this space. Who do you see as your biggest competitor, and what makes you special?
Putting me on the line, so it's all good. So, honestly, I think the market is really, really big because the Philippines and Southeast Asia is really at the very beginning of the growth of e-commerce. So, naturally, there are the competitors from abroad, right? Yeah. And they have been in this business for 10, 15 plus years, right? So I won't be naive enough to not recognize them. And I appreciate them because you know what? The more people think about them, guess what? Guess what business owner doesn't want choice?
Absolutely. Faster, cheaper, better. If you could provide that, you've got their business. And you start your packages with as little as 10 US dollars, right? 495 pesos.
You got it. That's
Yeah,
right.
per
And
month. Yeah.
we say in the Philippines that that's less than a Jollibee per day.
Really? Is Jollibee that expensive now? I haven't been to the Philippines in a while. That's quite a lot. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, for 495 pesos, or equivalent to $10, people can have their own brand.com online store. And imagine what that does to level the playing field, Brian, because these kinds of applications used to only be accessible for big companies.
Yeah.
And these kinds of subscriptions and software programs are 2.5 times the cost if you were to go with an outside of the country type of provider. And they don't have local support, and they're not building needs with the top priorities of the local country of the Philippines. So, whether it's technology or any product and service, it really is the consumer first that really wins, in my opinion, on the business strategy. And I believe that's what's happening.
Now, Dennis, Filipinos are by nature very social. They were even in the early days of the mobile phone, Filipinos were the biggest users of SMS in the world. And so they've always adopted mobile technologies very quickly. Where do you see, and you said, the Philippines is the very early stages of e-commerce. What's the split like, and what are the growth trajectories being forecast?
Yeah, so I think the really positive news about what's happening in the Philippines is, first, if we look at the numbers prior to COVID, right? E-commerce was already growing at a rate of 28% in a compounded annual growth rate, which, for any industry, that's solid.
Yep.
Right. And then now, retail traditional foot traffic has declined by 70%. Right. In the second half of last year alone, there was almost 80,000 new businesses that were registered at the Department of Trade. And those 80,000 companies were online businesses. That's a great sign of the growth and trajectory of where we're going. And, if you look at a lot of the other third-party research, like Facebook, who is predicting that e-commerce and online purchases in Southeast Asia will increase by 3.2x from its prior growth rate, right? Yep. And then I would like to add, this is a real killer stat. The Philippines used to be, I guess, let me take that back. I won't be that aggressive. We still are a predominantly cash-based industry or region, right? COD, cash on delivery, right? But GCash, right? Not to plug them, but we have to look at them as a behavioral shift.
They have 40 million customers now.
Yeah.
They were on one of our shows last week.
Oh, I'll have to catch that.
Yeah.
Well, they probably cited numbers then where, the number of new GCash registrations and accounts was almost 300%.
Yeah.
And
it's phenomenal growth numbers.
Yeah. And now there's like 3 trillion pesos running through GCash last year. And so let's just compare that to certain banking trends that happened. I mean, and I'm sorry, this is kind of a Western analogy, but at least for me in the US, once I got the debit card, I was always just, why do I need to go to the bank? I don't need to go inside the bank. I would try to avoid the bank.
And in fact, in the Philippines, what's happening is two things that we also interviewed CIB Philippines, I think 2 weeks ago. And if you look at what they are doing together, because they are collaborating, you've got 40 million customers that are GCash customers. You've got 4 million CIB Philippines digital only bank, no physical footprint
Yes.
in 2 years. So you from those numbers, you can see phenomenal growth because it takes advantage of Philippines geographical spread. So instead of going to a physical bank, essentially digital transactions would empower people, as far as Luzon, they don't have everything doesn't happen in Manila. It could be in
No.
Luzon, and you could be a power seller on your platform, Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, and so who would want to go back in time,
Yeah.
right? Once they get on that. So I think those are just, Brian, I think those are just really promising, behavioral shifts, that are really, in my opinion, going to make the world of the micro and small to medium enterprises, it's going to give them so much more opportunity. And, that's really why I came to the Philippines, is to see that evolution happen.
Now, how has that worked out for you financially? What sort of revenues are you doing right now, Dennis?
You don't want to hold anything back, do you, Brian? Well, if you're interested in seeing an investor pitch deck, maybe we can talk afterwards. But here's what I will share. You know, we've been very blessed to see very significant double-digit growth rates, and we are on track for a significant growth of 5+ digits in terms of number of customers. Now, these aren't just free customers that kind of log in and create an account and never come back. So these are actually
minimum paying you $10 a month. They're
That's
paying
right.
customers.
That's right. That's right. And so, but yeah, maybe I'd love to come back on Biztech Asia in a few months, and we'll share some of the updates with you on what our revenue is looking like.
I think we'll do that at some point, Dennis. But how have you funded this business? Because you also just won some seed funding in a competition. Tell us about it.
Yeah, that was a great milestone. So last Sunday, we were released on the season finale of the final pitch, which is the Philippines version of the Shark Tank, which I'm sure a lot of people know, right? And there were there was 4 prestigious potential investors on the show, and we went there to really show the Philippines and Southeast Asia and now the world what the Philippines, what Prosperna is all about when it comes to empowering SMEs. And we left the show with 2 partnership opportunities to help us grow the business, and we also left with a significant offer of $450,000 as our first investor. So prior to last Sunday, we were 100% bootstrapped.
Fantastic. Now, what's the strategy moving forward? I mean, are you looking at role models like Bukalapak in Indonesia, for example, for inspiration in terms of how big you can grow? Because they are unicorns, similar business.
Yeah, they are very, very interesting. And I really respect, how, number one, before, COVID and all this stuff was happening to the world, they really took the step forward and had the courage to start working and helping micro and small to medium-sized businesses with technology and e-commerce. So I really like that. And we certainly have started to pay attention to what the rest of Southeast Asia is doing, because I think there's some definite potential synergies. For us and our future, we're really 300% focused, on helping the small to medium-sized company with helping them get direct to consumer. And what we're doing is trying to remove all the friction, because it's going to be harder and harder as the entire world is adapting to technology. It's not just the Philippines, it's not just Indonesia, not just Malaysia. The whole world is adapting technology.
Yeah.
So it's going to be harder and harder to get those developers and technical resources, right? And SMEs, are going to need that friend in the technology business to help them, put together the payments, put together the shipping, put together rewards and promotions, and get their brand across different channels. So we're just super focused on, being there to help them through that journey, right?
Now, Dennis, final questions. You have a very interesting background, working in the Silicon Valley, being American, coming back to the Philippines, starting a business, finding the right product market fit, and then now you're scaling rapidly. What are some of the lessons that you can share with us from your entrepreneurial journey that will benefit other entrepreneurs and business owners?
There's a lot of lessons and a lot of bruises and bumps along the way. We could have probably several episodes on each one of them, but the things that stick out for me at a high level, number one, and it's just like anything in life, most things are they really have to do with what's up here, right? It's the mindset, right? It's making that leap of faith and going into something that you may not be that comfortable with. I mean, I didn't grow up in the Philippines. I didn't go to school here in the Philippines. Outside of my immediate family, I didn't even know anybody in the Philippines, right? And that's the entrepreneurial journey, is taking that step because you really, believed in it and you were going to do no matter what it takes to find success. So to me, number one, it's the mindset. Second thing, and I think any successful business owner can resonate to this, but even it's in its most simplest form, it's really important to measure everything that you do, right? I mean, certainly we have a growing back office, and accounting and administrative and finance team today. But in the beginning, we still kept those financial fundamentals in place, right? Like, we can't hire someone, right, until we get 10 more customers, right? Really simple forecasting and math like that, right? It doesn't make sense to build this new product, right, unless customers say, and are willing to actually pay for it, right? So number two is measuring basically anything and everything to ensure that you understand where you're going. The third is really, I would say, how important it is to build the right culture. And when I say culture, Brian, it's not your just typical culture of your company and your employees. It's really about, the culture and the brand and the promise that you make to your customers, to your partners, to your community, even to your competition, right? I really think that technology and entrepreneurship, can really do great things to make any country, not just the Philippines, a better place. And technology is just one of those things that we believe can be that bridge.
Now, Dennis, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you, Brian, and congratulations to you and the Biztech Asia community, because I think it's really important to continue just creating awareness and bringing everybody together. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you. I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Dennis Velasco of Prosperna on Biztech's SME show. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.